right. Welcome back to the Different Spectrums podcast. If you haven't listened to our show before, we have conversations around mental health and we dabble in humor.
A
Yeah.
pinch.
We also try to help people understand, identify, and normalize their emotions from movies and shows, specifically certain scenes. You've probably already watched these movies and shows, but we're going to use a different perspective, and one could say a different spectrum. Less toys is having a seizure. And with that, I'm going to introduce my co host. He's our licensed clinical therapist, lover of all plushies.
This is a
And
new
what
one.
he's doing. Yeah, I see that. You're
I'm
really
showing
playing
them
around with
all.
it. It's Nazir, everybody.
Hello, people. Welcome back. Hopefully, y'all been enjoying the pods lately. Since January
Yes.
1st, they've been getting a little bit deeper.
Deep.
Deep. Until next week when we do the dodgeball one, then it's going to go kind of sideways.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, all right. They're doing another thing here. Nice.
Yep.
And of course, I'm your other co host for the show, Spencer. Yep. Today, we're taking a look at two scenes from The Longest Yard. If you haven't seen The Longest Yard, it's about a quarterback who goes to prison and he is tasked with coming up with a team to have the prisoners go against the guards. That's the movie. You're like, well, is that it? Yeah, but you know what? It's hilarious. And in the first thing that we're going to watch, this is where they break it, like Adam Sandler, the quarterback, breaks into the, I don't know, was it like a database or something like that?
Yeah.
And something like that. And they're trying to find all the 5-star, the badasses of the prison so they can join the team and beat up the guards pretty much.
Yes.
And of course, Chris Rock finds out what his star rating is. It's not good.
He's
It's
not
not
violent.
good.
No, he's not seen as
No,
a threat.
no. And so in this scene, they talk about masculinity and getting your rep up.
Mm-hmm.
Things you all got to worry about in prison, apparently.
Yeah. Gotta make sure
All the
they're
things.
the biggest man on campus.
Gotta be big. And then the second scene, this is actually going to have a trigger warning around it.
Yep.
Stone Cold Steve Austin is in the movie. And so Nelly joins Adam Sandler's team, and they're trying to intimidate Nelly so that he will like hit them and he won't be able to play. And so Stone Cold says some very hurtful, racist things, I would say.
There'll be some
Yeah.
slurs.
Yeah, some slurs. And so, yeah, just a little bit of trigger warning for that one. And I mean, for that scene, we're mainly just going to be talking about people trying to, get you to go off the deep end or trying to, get you to go to some place where you don't even want to be.
Yeah, to stir you up, to gaslight you.
Yes,
And
exactly.
we'll talk about how people of color kind of have to handle some of these things in
Yes.
the workplace or maybe with friends. And it's probably not going to be as overt as this scene where they're like saying the N word at him, but it'll be other small microaggressive things.
True. So yeah, so we're checking those things out. Nazir, anything before we get into the clips?
Same old. Keep following the socials, Instagram and the TikTok. With subscribers are slowly going up and up. Instagram, TikTok slowly going up and up. We appreciate all the feedback that we got last year. Hopefully all the quality of the pods and the audio of the pods will be much better now moving forward since we got everything figured out and new stuff. So we're really excited to move forward in the month of February and on. February will be our anniversary.
February.
Yeah, end of February is pretty much when we started recording.
Wow, seems like it's gone so fast.
It's gone
So
by fast as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started
Don't even feel like
recording
we
at
do.
the end of February,
That's crazy.
and then we started releasing mid-March. And then, that was it. Releasing mid-March, and then we got real serious about it in June after our vacation in May.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we did. Wow, that's crazy.
Goes by quick, man.
It really does.
Yep. Be dead soon.
Hopefully not.
Oh, let's see.
Oh,
One can
I got
only
hit by
hope.
a bus. I don't even take the bus.
Please.
Lord, if you could bring down a bus on me, please.
I'm tired of going to work. Okay. Yeah, let's check it out. Let's get into the scene.
Whoop, whoop.
Boop, boop.
Ain't you guys glad you got a black man for a friend?
Hell yeah.
Come on.
Okay. Hazen has a rating system for every con.
What's 3 stars?
The more prone to violence that the inmate is, the more stars it gets.
5 stars is the max.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Let's see how many stars my maniacal ass got.
Wow.
Well, half a star. That's got to be a mistake. Check it again. Check it again.
You're about as maniacal as a box full of kittens.
Come on, that's not funny, man. I'm gonna have to stab somebody or something to get my rep up.
Why don't we have a maniacal pillow fight tonight? That could get it up, so.
Yeah. We could sell it to pay-per-view. Superstar versus half a star.
Why don't you shut up before I slit your throat and watch the dust come out?
Come on, guys, we only got a couple minutes. How about this guy?
Damn, this fool got the chair 3 times, ain't died yet.
Well, we may not have the most talented team, but we will definitely have the meanest.
Any books you'd recommend? Inmate?
No, sir. Not much of a reader.
Oh, come on now, maggot. I've seen you in here reading before. You requested this detail, isn't that right?
Nah. It's quiet time I like, sir. Maybe you like to read this.
What the hell kind of bullshit book is that?
It's historical, sir.
Now, why would he want to read a book about a 4-eyed nigger? Does the N-word offend you, nigger?
No, sir.
Oops.
Sorry about that. You mind fetching these books for me, boy?
No, sir.
Just pick them up, put them on the table.
There you go.
You forgot one.
Bet you'd like to hit us, huh?
Hit you, sir?
Nah.
Y'all my friends.
Pick these up.
We got 1 week before we play the game. We can't complete a pass. Naked can't run the ball every play.
No, coach. What the hell is he smiling at?
Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, when I'm coming for ya, it's gonna sound like.
This better be on the up and up.
I guarantee it.
Let's do this shit.
There goes the neighborhood.
Oh, I'll never get to play.
All right. And we're back. So just want to fill in a little bit more context into the scenes that we saw. The first one, they went into the record system and they wanted to find the meanest and toughest people in the prison so that they could have a intimidating team, right? They had the intimidating factor, but they still needed that athleticism, the superstars. So they tried to get the brothers to play, but unfortunately they didn't. And then that's where we jump to the scene with Nelly, because then he actually does join the team, and the guards find out that he's like ridiculously fast and talented, and so then the guards try to intimidate him into doing something so that he can get kicked off of the team, or even just put into like solitary or something like that. And so then we have that scene happen, and we see Michael Irvin and Terry Crews come to the aid of Nelly, and help him out. And then now they kind of understand that that they need to help out the team, not only to beat the guards, but then to also kind of have everybody come together for this thing called football.
Come together for football, beat up the guards just in general, maybe get some self-respect back, for the racism and just the abuse.
It's not just a physical beatdown, it's a mental beatdown for the guards too, because they think they're the top dogs. So bring them down right after that, playing them in football, beating them. So, yeah. All right. So, first reactions to the scenes. This is like one of my childhood movies. This is like right when, I want to say like middle school or something like that. Maybe it came out. I think I was like
maybe
11.
That makes sense. Maybe maybe it was middle school for you and then high school for me, I feel.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, this was one of my favorite movies, especially, when you're playing football and the music, just all the players just coming together and everything like that. Nelly scene where he's like, we're not going to show this in here, but for one of our reels, when he's running. Yeah. So when he's running, you just want to be a running back and run all over the place and all that. When Michael Irvin goes up, grabs the ball, you're like, I want to do that.
Yep.
Exactly.
And I wanted to be Swatowski when he's like lifting all the benches and stuff like that. He's just super strong and
You teach me the football?
You teach me football? He was so kind. Let's be honest. If there's a neurodivergent character, he's neurodivergent in the show.
I'd say that's fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. But yeah, love it. Love the fact that they brought back Burt Reynolds from the first iteration of The Longest Yard. And so for this first scene, we always try, especially in prison, but we can take it to just regular life.
Yeah, let's take regular life. Yep.
Yeah, regular life. We're all, at least for men, we're always trying to one up ourselves somehow in our masculinity. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing personally, because I think competition's a good thing until it gets too toxic and you're cheating everybody into being more masculine. We've been having that problem for a while where people think like, oh, these big muscles are going to make me more masculine and everything like that. That's going to make me a real man. At the end of the day, it's not. But then once you see Caretaker, he's like one of the realest guys there in the prison. One of the realest guys, takes care of everybody, hence his name. And that half a star doesn't really say about his character. It just has to say for what he hasn't done in prison.
Yeah, he's just not a violent individual. It doesn't degrade or demean who he is as a man. But
right,
I mean, he was embarrassed about it, and so then he's like, "Shit, I'm about to stab somebody or something." Like, you know, all the other characters that are on that list, they're like legit, like kind of crazy as murderers. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's intense, and so Caretaker is obviously not going to have a high rating on there. I think maybe a
Right.
lot of people watching our podcast aren't going to have high ratings either. It's
I would
not a
hope
thing.
not.
Yeah.
I would hope not. But hey, if you do, we love you anyways. Don't stab me. Just don't do it, please.
Yeah.
Thank
I'll stab you
you.
back.
I'm not just gonna let you stab me and then that's it. I'm gonna stab right back.
Yeah. Plat. I'm going to get you first.
Jesus. Wow. Um, let's unpack the first scene first. What are your thoughts on the first scene?
So I remember first watching that, man. We were saying that in the locker room all the time. Like, I'm gonna have to do something.
Hmm.
Shit, ain't no one respecting me. I'm gonna stab someone. I'm gonna hit you in the back of the knee. Like, I'm gonna blow your shit out now. Oh yeah. Uh-huh. People start messing with you in sports, man, and you're like, okay,
Yeah.
all right, you're gonna get chop blocked now. What? Well, you're gonna be walking around with a fucking peg leg.
Thanks. Yeah, that doesn't bring me back to senior year of football. Thank you.
You
Appreciate
know?
that.
I
Someone
love
chop
it.
blocked me
I
and my
love it.
knee
People,
popped.
I have seen people try to muscle up on you, and I'm like, okay, I know how to change this up. Because if I go for your knee
Yes.
one time, then you got to pull off the gas.
You know what? You offensive linemen are just ass people. You know that?
Mhm.
I hate all of you. I've
Yep.
always hated
You
offensive
can't,
linemen.
don't mess with us now. We will go at your knee.
Yeah.
You aim right at the crotch and you land at the knee.
Should have been a flag. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Oh, well, I had a lot of flags, so it was intense. So we were saying that all the time. Man, I'm gonna have to get my rep of something. And I just think about how masculinity isn't necessarily a bad thing. I agree with what you said there. But what it can lead into,
Yeah.
the masculinity, there's a lot of statistics and things showing and how it's actually killing a lot of men. Because
Right.
we're not able to open up, be vulnerable, talk about mental health, like this type of stuff, unless we get
Right.
really isolated and we don't talk. So that's not this violent masculinity. It's this,
Right.
I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm gonna take care of it. And that's actually what's killing us.
Right.
It's also what leads us to treat other people a little bit more poorly, to be
Mhm.
a little bit more abusive, derogatory. It's what allows us to treat our other men poorly or more violently, or just not be more kind and empathetic, which allows us to hurt women a little bit more. Because if we don't value our own selves, it's hard for us to value others. Not all men,
Right.
not all masculine men are going to be like that. I'm super
Yeah.
masculine,
Mhm.
and yet I have all this kindness and empathy and heart and emotionality to me. There's a
Right.
bunch of big folk that are super masculine that
Mhm.
are awesome, awesome humans. And so sometimes that stigma of being more masculine or being more muscular or wearing like a flannel and shit and cowboy boots or whatever, like lumberjack kind of style for the white guys watching, listening, there's a stigma with it. Or if you got a fish on your Tinder profile or a deer, like you're gonna be labeled as masculine.
Yeah. It's true. A lot of women don't like that. If you have a fish or a deer carcass on your profile, left.
Yep. And I'm telling you, man, I met some really awesome people that are my country friends and stuff like that, my farming
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
So that's a different type of masculinity. The masculinity we're talking about is the currency of violence.
Mm.
That currency of violence is what we're seeing with a lot of these murder sprees and shooting sprees. And, I'll take your life. I'll be a
Right.
5-star, go to prison, uh, because that's who I am. Like, don't push me. I'll push the button and I'll end it and end all of you. That masculinity is intense. That violent masculinity is intense. And the one that makes us isolate, not be vulnerable, is intense. And then finally, when we do find, this is what happens with a lot of relationships, men and
Mm.
women. As a therapist, you'll get them to open up and talk about some feelings or emotions or actually say that you like them. And then it usually goes to shit. And they're like, "Oh, it's going too fast." They're like,
Yeah.
that I seen that with all genders.
Yeah. Just opening up too much, right? Like,
Yeah,
or all at once, I should say.
at once.
All at
Sometimes
once.
it's just like very innocent. It's like, "Hey, we really like each other. Do you want to, like, what are we calling this thing?" And then the other person will like freak out, and then my clients would be like, "Well, this is why I don't fucking open up to anyone. This is why I'm not vulnerable." Or my men will open up about something, and sometimes the other partner will be like, "Ew."
Mm.
The dude would be like, Fuck you mean ill?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're supposed to be like the strong one. I'm supposed to be the damaged one. I'm like, why do you need to be the damaged? Like, I can't have a bad day. Like, you can't hold me or console me. And so it leads men to just not saying anything. It's a generational thing that's passed down too. So it's a gendered thing. It's
Right.
also a generational thing too, because the old school men, that's men. What do they call it? What's the greatest generation, right? It's all being
Yeah.
masculine, fighting wars and shit like that. And then now we got everyone talking about feelings.
Yeah. I've never had a sick day. Like, all right, bro, calm down.
Motherfucker, that's why you died at
Calm.
50.
I know, right? You're 45 and you look 72. Let's calm it down.
Well, my day we worked. Like, motherfucker, I'm still working.
Working. I just don't want to work as much.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, we hear those things. I hear that from my dad. I hear that from a lot of older people. I see it on Instagram, or not, but social media news. Like, America, we used to build things, and like, I'm like, we still build things, bro. And now, like,
things.
we hurting people's feelings. I'm like, oh my god. So then that gets into a whole different thing about masculinity.
Right.
Masculinity is not a bad thing. I got a lot of women and femme presenting people that also identify with a lot of masculine things. And it's completely fine. It's when it gets over into some of the negative aspects, like what he's talking about, because he's talking about like stabbing somebody.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and also, let's be honest, he's in prison, so it's all a whole different thing, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, there you kill or be killed.
Yeah.
We don't know, but from stories that I've heard from the family, it's kill or be killed.
Let's be honest. But then that's also kind of like a problem, right? It's like, as a man, I have to stab you in order to like make sure that you don't mess with me, because I might not show the masculinity that I'm supposed to show in prison and things like that.
Yep.
That's a whole other thing, but at the same time, it's a very real problem, especially in prison. I also think, like, I have to ask, like, what do you think of the kind of like movement of like all these different like social media people trying to bring back masculinity and all that stuff? Like, what do you think about like some of those people
So
that are doing it?
see, the masculinity is actually so complex. Is what parts do they want to bring back?
True.
Because there's so many awesome things about how men used to act in good ways and how they used to treat others and stuff like that. There's a lot of good qualities, but then there's also some of these bad qualities on how they treated others, on how they looked and viewed themselves. So you got a lot of men out there that are saying and doing things, or what's homeboy's name? And Andrew Tate, motherfucker.
Andrew Tate, yeah.
Andrew Tate, right? You got some of them type of cats that are out there on a few things. Now, maybe some of their points, like, oh, it's like, okay, I can see this. But then there's some things where they're kind of out there and things like that. That hyper masculinity, that volatility. As an MMA person, I can see where that made you the top dog. But in reality, that's some shit that'll make you like die alone type of stuff. It's going to be hard to find a partner if that's how you treat individuals. In a partnership where you don't own them. The type of ways I see a lot of men talk about it on social media, it feels more like they want to own the individual and be dominant. Masculinity is connected to dominance.
Right.
So if you same thing in the prison stuff, where if you dominate and you rule, then you are the top dog and you're safe and you can look down on folks. Right. So some of that old masculinity stuff is built on dominance. It's built on carnage. It's built on genocide. That is masculinity, is dominance. That's what I ain't cool with, because it's just abuse and manipulation. I'm not cool with that. You can act as buff and cool and like as a man's man as you want, but now when we start to like people, you're hurting people,
right,
or controlling people, that's the version of masculinity I'm not cool with.
And that's the thing, like, especially for myself, I always try to make sure that, I know that my girlfriend wants like a man to be part of her life, right? She wants a man to be her partner. right? And then that's totally fair. But at the same time, I also try to make sure that we're individuals. We're not just one connected thing. We're our own selves. Because once you start making someone a possession, that's when, like you said, it gets to that rate, like that just ownership thing. And I don't own you and you don't own me. That's the way we work. That's my relationship.
But
And
that's
that's
the
why I
old
think,
school of what masculinity used to be, was
right,
owning individuals.
right, which,
And
yeah, I mean, and I just think that overall, I think if people just look and then that gets into like a whole thing, like, because you can't even be like friends with women who have boyfriends for the most part, because then it's just like, oh, you're trying to get with my woman. I'm just trying to talk, motherfucker. Like, if you're that jealous, maybe you should take a look at yourself and be like, why am I so
freaking out.
protective of this thing that doesn't really matter at the end of the day? It's like, bro, you're okay. No one's gonna try to steal you, even if they try to steal your girl. Women, for the most part, they don't leave motherfuckers unless they just don't want to be with them. Let's
Correct.
be real. Women are very loyal until they're not. That's how it is. And if you're that afraid of it, then maybe that's not the right girl for you. And maybe you just need to self reflect a little bit more
What's going on
on
with
your
you and
life.
why you're so insecure. I got a lot of insecure young men that come to me.
Oh, yeah.
They're like, man, my girl's going out with her homegirls, this and that. And I'm freaking out. And so we'll break down why they're freaking out. Because, they always say, I'm scared about the other dudes because I know the other dudes are trash. I'm like, okay,
Mm,
yeah, that's kind of valid because, they're going to be getting hit on at the bar. They're attractive young women. But
right.
like, you got to trust your girl to like handle herself. He's like, well, it's hard for me to trust my girl. So what if she drinks? I'm like, if your girl's going to get super drunk and then go home with another dude, you know, uh,
Yeah.
I had it a
That's,
long
that's,
time ago. It's
yeah.
messed up. Yeah, like that normally doesn't happen. Like if that happens, then like poor choices on them. Mistakes do happen, but they probably wasn't that into you, or they didn't have respect for you. Something weird's going on there. I've had it where I've had clients where their partner, doesn't matter what gender, has gotten drunk at the bar and then they were taken advantage of, and so that'll be the other partner's like worst nightmare. That'll break a
Right. And
relationship
that's
up.
terrible.
That's
That's
terrible because
terrible.
that'll break the relationship up because they're both traumatized now.
Right. And
I've seen that.
I mean, I've had that in my past. Not going to go into it because that's her story.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a really tough thing. And you don't really, sometimes you don't really know how to say certain things until it happens. And that was like one of those things that you're just like, oh my gosh, like this actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you can't really, like, you don't really you can't blame them
No, but
because,
I've
that's
I've
the
had
other
it
person.
where some of the clients blame that individual, and
Right.
I'm like, bruh, you know, they didn't ask for that person to do what they did, right? They were sitting there having fun doing their thing, and then some stuff happened. That's
Right.
not on them. That's the human. You be mad at that other human,
Right.
right? And so I have some. Let's be real, men that just can't handle that, and they get
Yeah.
mad at their partner instead of the individual or society that
Mm,
thinks it's appropriate. But that gets into a lot of different things where men get very uncomfortable
it
about
does.
assault and what's consent, what's not consent. Um,
Right.
Masculinity gets pushed, especially in relationships.
Hmm.
Um, the thing is, we also gendered. Some people, most of the people on here, our podcast are neurodivergent folks. There's going to be a lot of folks of color that listen to us, then a lot
Hmm.
of queer folk, LGBTQ folk. And so if we talk about gendered, we've gendered emotions. We've gendered masculinity. Like you can be a masculine woman or femme presenting, and that. Like who cares? You can be
Right.
feminine and still be a man, identify as a man. But we also feminize just being emotional and being kind and being supportive.
True.
And then we
Yeah.
take femininity and then we turn it into derogatory terms where you're soft, you're a bitch, you're a pussy. I'm sorry for saying these words, but that's the words that we label for weakness.
Yeah.
And so masculinity is dominance, where femininity is weakness and needs to be subservient.
Right.
And so that's why this scene is awesome to show, because that's how a lot of us young men think. And then as we get older, have more mature conversations or have children, we're like, damn,
Right. Yeah.
like we need to change up some things, because I don't want to be this piece of shit and like project these things onto my child, because I want them to be confident and cool in who they are, open up to me. I want to have dialogue.
Right.
We feminize so many things. So many things. Uh, Activities, hobbies. We feminize reading.
Yeah.
Right. We feminize, if you're not going to the gym and getting super yoked, getting yoked, bro.
Yeah.
And this is coming from a dude that goes to the gym and lifts weights quite often.
Right.
But we feminize cardio. We feminize theater. We feminize a lot of different things and activities, because we're scared that if we show any feminine traits, and then, that means that we're a woman or we're gay. I like talking about masculinity. I work with a crap ton of athletes, and some of my boys will come to me, bro, and we start working on a lot of stuff. And it's the funniest thing. All my super masculine dudes literally just want some love. I'm like, you little punk. You just want a hug, don't you, little punk? You little bitch boy.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Jesus.
But I'm making a joke of it, because most of them want a hug or a nurturer because their fathers or mothers were intense and derogatory or nasty, or they couldn't just talk to them about their weaknesses. I got young men and women that if they cry, they get hammered for it.
Right.
So instead of processing all of it, they just shut it down. And they'll be like, yeah, no, I ain't cried in like 15 years. I'm like, damn. Like, you ain't even cry when you watch Marley and me? Or when you seen Tony Stark die? You didn't cry when Tony died?
I almost did, but his wife ruined it for me.
Oh,
She
God.
did. She was terrible.
Bro.
She's like, don't touch him.
When he died, that was tough. There's a lot of scenes. When
That was
Aunt
a
May
tough one.
died in the new Spider-Man,
That one was tough.
yeah. If you didn't
That
cry in
one
some of
was
these
tough.
scenes, man, even if it's not your own stuff, there's some things going on. In saying that,
Yeah.
it's a neurodivergent podcast. A lot of my neurodivergent folks are gonna hover in the middle grounds where they're not too high and like a static, and then they're gonna not get too low. They're gonna be a little bit more stoic. Not everyone, but there's gonna be a lot of that, just kind of chill and vibing, that Colin vibe.
Right.
I had a couple humans that came in today with that same type of vibe, and they're like, "What's wrong with me? Am I depressed?" I'm like, "You're not necessarily depressed, but we got to look at these small things that bring you joy."
Mm-hmm.
So today was about the masculinity thing, but we still wanted, it's going to be a longer pod, but
Yes.
I wanted to do 3 a week, but I think because of my time and all that, and I think we're doing 2 weeks, so I'm cool with going a little bit longer, because we release on Monday and Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
Masculinity is an interesting thing to talk about. I'll say this last. I seen a documentary called "The Mask You Wear," or is it called "The Mask You Live In?" It was a documentary just about masculinity.
Mm-hmm.
And they took all these studies. They have NFL players in it. They got high school kids in it, and they're just talking about how you hide things, how you put on a show. And they were talking about a lot of these young men of color, and it was intense watching them cry and break down in this group therapy. A lot of them were like in juvenile and shit like that. It is intense. So that's a wonderful thing to, if someone wants to watch it. I used to give it out to a lot of my athletes, but like now no one has a fucking DVD player, so I can't give it out anymore.
Here's a DVD. What am I supposed to do with this, Nas?
What do I do with this? Is this a bookmark or
This is a coaster? What
what is this? I set my beer on this? So good scene there. The next scene.
Yes.
So I'm gonna lay a little bit of the foundation for the discussion there. So, like I said, I don't think that a lot of us get those overt racist things, being Mexican and Arab, myself, right? You being mixed as well, black and white.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our friends are multiracial, black, brown.
Yeah, not a lot of white friends for me,
Yeah,
honestly.
and so
Not a lot.
those things happen, but it's usually more covert, more microaggressive. Very rarely will you have
Yeah,
someone go, "You know what, boy," and then say the N
no,
word, or "You know what," and then say some derogatory words for Arabs or Mexicans. That doesn't happen to me.
no. It's more of that, like, you shouldn't go to that neighborhood. Why? It's just not great. It's not a great neighborhood.
Because there's crime in there. Oh yeah, there's a lot of crime in there, huh? Oh
I do
yeah.
have a slight story once we're
Okay,
a little bit more into it, but
we
yeah.
can get into that. And so Stone Cold is saying the N word to get Nelly, the
Mhm.
running back, to react, to blow up, and then they can harm him or get him off the team, right? To sabotage. You might
Mhm.
see some of those things in the workplace in some more toxic places. You might see it in some of your relationships where people will egg you on or goat you into saying something, or they'll see if you'll blow up to maybe then you'll get fired, or you might see that.
Mhm.
Sometimes I'll see it in relationships where someone they'll start a fight, a verbal fight, and then they're they subconsciously hoping that there's like an altercation, then they can call the police, get you in trouble. I've seen both
Right.
genders do that. It's a lot of toxic things that go on. Uh, I've seen it where it's done in the classroom in the workplaces where a lot of sexism is done in this way, um,
Mm.
for both genders. But I've seen where a lot of my women are taken advantage or talked to in a different way compared to their counterparts or overlooked. And sometimes it's subconscious and sometimes it's conscious. I've had it where a lot of my students of color, the teachers will say things or do things or pick on them or point them out or leave them out and not acknowledge them. Those are the racist, sexist, homophobic things that we're trying to talk about. I
Right.
will say these days, there's still a lot of homophobic things and racist things that get said, but it's usually more hush hush. I feel like the more homophobic things with my clients are still kind of out there because I have clients who'd be like, yeah, I was just walking down the street and someone just yelled a slur. I was like, oh, that's nice.
Right.
Because we're in rural Indiana and some of my queer students are from like California, New York, and so they can be with their partners and holding hands and like it's fine. And then you come to Indiana, it's like, what are
Better
you
not do
doing?
that.
What are you doing, boy? Um,
Yeah.
and so some of my clients are feisty and they'll be like, you know what, fuck you. And I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, let's talk about how I don't want you to react and say that because I don't want you to die.
Right. Yeah.
Don't go back into it when someone says something to you. I get it. I want you to stand up for yourself. Also, walking by yourself at night or with your partner at night, let's not do that. Let's get
Mm-mm.
like a little taser maybe or some pepper spray, and someone messes with you, you can spray their ass.
Yeah.
Uh, so I have to teach safety, which is sad that I have to teach it, but uh, I've had it where people will say things to me. I've had it where classmates, like social work classmates, like we're talking about a topic about Arabs.
Mhm.
I am Arab. I know many things about this topic. And the white girl was like,
Mhm.
well, no, I don't believe that. And, we're going to do it this way. And, it's just, I just brushed me off. I literally felt like I was a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm Arab, right?
Mhm.
Uh, I feel like shit when this person did that.
Mhm.
And I get that quite often because, like, I'm the jokester. And so people will brush me off and think that I'm just some idiot loser or like I have no idea about anything because I don't have to present as highly intelligent around you all the time. So people will treat me poorly at times. Um,
Right.
I don't care if it's like friends or if it's playful, but when I'm trying to speak about something that I'm knowledgeable on, and then you're like, no, you're a fucking idiot. Why would I trust you? I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe it's my fault because I play the idiot role so much. But
I
still, you
don't.
shouldn't treat someone like that.
No, I think that person is just very ego driven, and so they can never be wrong. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah,
Because I've met a lot of people like that in my life where I'm like, no, I've dealt with this before, and they're like, you don't understand, you don't get it. It's just like I do, maybe not in your shoes, but I get
yeah,
it. Maybe you should open up yourself a little bit. Maybe
a smidge.
hear other opinions for
Yeah,
once.
something. It's just funny too, because this is like a social work individual. We're supposed to be like open and woke and all that. I'm like, you're literally treating me like shit. And maybe you hate men and that's why you dislike me. You don't take me serious. Like, I don't know what's going on right now, but you're
Right.
trying to your version of mansplain things to me, and I'm like, this is weird. Okay,
Femsplain?
Arab splain. Hey, you trying to Arab splain to me, motherfucker? I live this.
I know what I am.
Yeah, yeah, we are. They are who we thought they were. It's a football reference. So that's some of the foundations of this part of the talk. What was your reactions to that scene? Because you said you told me earlier like you forgot that scene was there. I remember it quite vividly because Stone Cold was a racist piece of shit and kept saying this is how the white man does this and how the white man run the ball.
Yeah. I kind of forgot it because it was just one of those things where it's like, oh, ha ha ha, happy, and then this scene comes up, and it's just like brings down the whole movie, not in a bad way. It just brings down the tone, right? It gets a little bit darker, and you're like, oh, so that's right. There's this side of AKA Texas and the prison system. So yeah, two things there. But yeah, that's probably one of the like saddest scenes besides like Caretaker dying.
Yep.
That was a tough one.
I hated this. This scene made me want to vomit rewatching it. And then damn near like angry cry when the receiver, the black dudes went over to go help him at the end to pick up the books. Like you almost wanted an angry cry, like you motherfuckers.
Like why'd you have to do that? Why? But that's one of the things, right? It's just it's just a tactic to try to get you to do something that makes you seem less human, to make you seem the way they want you to see you, right?
Correct. Yeah, I like how you said that. They want you to be that monster, and then when you pop off, see, I told you.
Yeah, I was right. It's like, what the fuck would you do?
Yeah.
What would you just be like, oh, thank you, sir. See you later. No. I think that's something that people of color, especially people with darker skin than maybe both of us, has to go through.
Yep.
Maybe like you said, maybe not that overt, but maybe it is that overt where people just slur things at them and they just have to sit there and take it, and you can't do anything. I've told you, I'm pretty sure I've told this story plenty of times on the podcast where my mom and my dad were pulled over in California, and they thought that he was like a carjacker or something like that. Thought he stole cars, and they pulled him over, and they were trying to instigate the situation over and over again, calling him the N-word. Yep, and just doing all restraining him certain ways and holding my mom a certain way to make him get agitated and angry and then go off on them. Then they saw my sister in the car, who's fair complexioned like me, and then they kind of just let him go and all that stuff. I wasn't born at the time, but it does go to that story where some people are always trying to push you, especially those with authority. They're always trying to push you into doing something that you are not, but you're going to get angry. And so that was one of those instances. I mean, my dad, I used to, like I've said before, I used to live in Edina, rich neighborhood, always pulled him over because he wasn't in the best car ever and he was a black person. So they thought maybe something would be on him or anything like that, and never did. And they look stupid every time they pulled my dad over because he was black and in a white neighborhood. So one of those instances. But yeah, and then even today, I dealt with one of my coworkers, and I call her Care. That's not her name, but I'm gonna call her that. I'm gonna call her Care. we were talking. She was like, "Oh, you're from Minnesota. What do you do? What do you do here?" I'm like, because she's from another state, and I was like, "Well, you could go to the, science museum, art museum. You can go downtown." And she was like, "Yeah, they told me here that I'm not supposed to go downtown." White woman, and I work at a kind of conservative company, so the fact that they even said that is so ridiculous to me, because I'm like, y'all are so scared of nothing. Like, don't get me wrong. Yeah, there are bad neighborhoods everywhere.
And every city's bad.
Every
If you go
city.
down outside at nighttime, 10, 11 o'clock, you're gonna run into some trouble.
As long as you know what you want to do and how to get there, that's all you got to worry about.
Yeah.
That's literally all you got to worry about. You went downtown with me. Not that bad. It's not that
No,
bad.
it was not bad at all.
No. And, granted, we weren't in like the worst part of the cities and stuff like that. But at the same time, why would you be going there anyways if you're just trying to find out what to do in the cities?
Yeah.
Like, it's not that hard. But my point is that people aren't always going to have that overtness. They're going to be like, yeah, you shouldn't go there. Why? What's wrong with going downtown in certain places? Like, I can have some fun, right? Well, there are those people that aren't really down with us either. It's just sickening. It just
It's
made
the
me
thing.
so pissed
And
to be
sometimes
at this company.
sometimes it's not even the damn people. That makes sense, being pissed, and it makes sense. Sometimes it's even the fucking news. Like, I thought like
Yeah.
Philly was gonna be ghetto as shit and just like terrifying.
Yes.
Me and you was walking around downtown. I get it, we're big boys, but
Yeah.
still, like, we walk around
Still.
downtown Philly at midnight, 1 in the morning, and no one was
Yeah.
fucking with us. Everyone was chill. There's some homeless people. Like, it is what it is.
was such a pretty city,
It's awesome.
honestly. Such a pretty city. I even told Nas, I was like, dude, we have to go back to Philly some point
Yeah.
because it was so nice.
So
It was
nice.
so nice.
Food was good. We literally walked that entire city late as shit at night. We walked DC, but it was downtown DC late as night.
And it was
Late as
also
hell.
after the insurrection thing.
Yeah. So it wasn't actually as busy down there because it was also COVID too. But I
that too.
remember being scared to walk around Philly like we was gonna get jacked or like murdered. I remember when we went to that bookstore and that was like legit supposedly in the hood, which that was a ghetto area. But like they
Wasn't
made it seem
bad.
like you were gonna get shot and killed just going in and get the book. I'm like, y'all, people, social media and the news will make so many places of color look like war zones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you go there at certain times, this and that, man, you're gonna be fine, man. Now, if you're a white girl, it's probably gonna be a little different than being me, you, and Celine walking around. It's gonna be a little different because I'm fucking
True.
terrifying. I remember because I go on a lot of vacations. That's not like a brag. I just been trying to travel since I got my jobs. Remember me and Celine was walking around in London, and I'd be like freaked out and shit like that. People walking next to me and shit. It'd be the little white ladies. And I'm like, why am I scared of this little ass white lady?
Back up.
Yep. I'm like, damn, if I'm scared of her 5-foot self, I can't imagine how they see me. They're like, fuck.
Why
Did I have to walk past the big one? We're both just scared of each other. And I'm gonna bring something up. I'm also not immune to this internal or implicit bias or hate or internalized racism. I know that when I've walked around or I've gone on vacations or taken the subway or the train or whatever, and it'll be white people, and then someone black or brown will come in, and I'll be like, suspicious looking motherfucker. I don't trust you.
I don't understand why.
Yeah, why you
You're
on
on here.
this bus? I'm not gonna lie, that immediate implicit reaction just happened, and I think everyone should acknowledge that no matter what, there's some internal bells and whistles that are go off, and I'm like, oh, that's stupid, and then I go about and think about whatever I was doing. Sometimes I'm just shocked to see people of color, just in general when I'm traveling.
Right.
So it's usually not a fearful reaction. I've had it where I've taken students to Detroit, and they're like, Nas, let's walk over here. I'm like, why? I didn't ask why, but in my head, I'm like, oh, because there's like a couple black people by the bus stop.
let's go converse with some
Yeah,
black
let's
people.
walk on the other side of the world. I'm like, oh, this is racist.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, that was interesting. I was like, I ain't trying to say nothing right now. I just want to get to the food spot.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
subtle things, subtle things that make you feel kind of trashy about being brown, but also it makes you think about the internalized hate you may have for yourself being
Mhm.
brown, or the internalized homophobia. It could be uh, fat phobia. Right, I'm a big boy, but I still got a lot of hate and dislike for being a big boy. You know, I wish I was thinner.
Mhm.
I wish I had when them good jawline. I wish I when I touched my face, it didn't do this. Jesus
Right.
Christ!
Yeah, that squishy face.
I didn't wish I didn't turn into a fucking chipmunk.
Oh,
Jesus. Canceled.
got that.
Yeah. So yeah, man, it's intense. I think I remember I first had some internalized hate when I went on vacation to Alaska, and I might have told this on the pod a while ago. I said this in many of my interviews and conferences that I, with students.
Mhm.
It's something racist like this, right? I have my internal stuff about every culture,
Mhm.
race, gender. We all do. That's just the systems that we grow up in. It thinks that it helps us inform us on decisions and how to judge people. But we went to Alaska to meet Colin. I was like, man, all these some funny looking motherfuckers, man.
Mhm.
These people look funny. And I told Colin, I said, man, they're all weird looking. He's like, yeah, they're natives.
Mhm.
They're Native Alaskans. So they kind of, they kind of look like Native Americans, but also kind of look like Filipino, they kind of look Hispanic. It's a different breed. The bigger folks, leading to something. So I went into the
Mhm.
grocery store and I'm like, Colin, everyone can treat me nice and saying what's up and stuff. I see it's because you look like them. Okay. So I went home later that night and I'm like, damn, if I think that they look funny,
Mhm.
I maybe think that they look kind of ugly. That
Mhm.
means I think that I look funny and look kind of ugly. That means I don't like myself. And that means, well, so why don't I like myself? Oh, because I'm not this symmetrical looking white boy.
Mhm.
So that's when I started to realize that that stuff has affected me. I would have never really thought about that
Right.
um, too deeply. And then I started traveling and I'm like, oh, interesting. That was a sad moment. Um,
Right.
and so sometimes those racist ideals or the eugenics of the world where we want everyone to like look like this prototype or this body
Right.
dysmorphia of being chiseled or a certain jawline, blue eyes, blonde hair, look like Chris Evans type of shit. Um,
Which is totally ridiculous now because it's like most people are mixed race anyways
but yeah,
now.
most
Like a
people are
lot
mixed
of people
race.
are
And
mixed
also,
race.
most people don't look like that unless they're godly gifted and great genetics. Like they worked really hard. They also had some good genetics.
They also
Um,
had some incest in there too.
Jesus. I was
They
gonna say
they
steroids,
did.
some of them personal chefs.
That's
Um,
too.
there's ways on how their bodies look a little different. It's also their job to look like that. Uh, and so to hate ourselves based on these things that we see is sickening. I think
Yes.
maybe now you understand a little bit more why I love seeing like fat brown dudes in these shows. Uh,
I mean, yeah, I mean, I get it. It's
I
another
don't
it's
I
like
don't
for
see it.
everybody else. It's like when you see women in like certain comic books or, it's like Star Wars or things like that. It's because you're actually seeing somebody that's like you on the screen, things like that.
Representation matters. It makes us
Yeah.
feel seen and empowered, listened to.
And I like representation. For me, I just want representation with people who have like actual build up, who actually have a story to tell. Because there are a lot of people in this world that have stories to tell,
True.
and I think we can do that and still have inclusion. Problem is a lot of people try to drown in like I'm a woman and like me right away. It's like, no, I want to build up to liking you. I
You
don't
still
need
want the
to like you
story.
right away.
Yep.
Yeah, I want a story, even if it was like a dude. I don't care. Like if you don't build up a story to where I'm gonna
Why do I like you?
cheer for you, or even if I don't like you, that's the thing. If I can hate you, that's still an emotion I can still use. So let me have that at least, like Thanos, right? Like you're just kind of conflicted. Like, do I like him? Do I not like him? That's a great story to tell. If you had that with a woman, any character, I love it. Do it.
I would
Do
say
it.
a good representation, because a lot of people hated her, was Reva from that Star Wars. People
Oh,
people hated her so much. Everyone hated her. Like, but like that's awesome character development. Like they just hated. Now
oh,
maybe some of the way how they wrote her towards the end, that was
I'm
different.
gonna stab you and you're still alive.
Yeah, so that's a little different. But like her character and how she projected and acted in those first few scenes and all that, like she was such a villain that you hated, and people hated her
Right.
so much that they
Yeah.
called her they called her every name in the book,
Right.
for a B word all the way to the N word, because they hated her so much.
Right. And that's kind of the problem. That's why you really don't see a lot of like evil people of color because
They'll
they'll
just
just
get
have the
hella racist.
racism.
They're gonna go
Yeah,
hella
you
racist.
just get racist. You can't just like, I just don't like that character at all. He's an asshole. He's just an asshole.
Yeah, he's just there's just a terrible person. They're like, you know what? No, I'm just gonna call you a bunch of horrible names for black folk.
You're
Yep.
black. Like, all right,
All right.
thanks.
Thanks for noticing that. I
I'm
remember hating
blue.
her so much. I'm sure, I guarantee you, they prepped her that she was going to get a lot of this backlash. There's no way they didn't prep her.
I think they prep every person of color um, that does like, especially any type of character in huge franchises. They're just like, you better be ready. Especially like they just they have the Little Mermaid now. She's gonna be person of color. She's gonna be black, and already
Tons of
got hate.
backlash.
Yeah. So any character, they're always gonna have that black backlash, and I think that a lot of it's unfair, but at the same time, you can't also just say like, okay, I just don't like the character. It's not because they're person of color or their gender. I just don't like the character. The character just sucks to me.
That's the
And
character.
that's
Yeah.
also and that's the problem though. A lot of people mix that up of saying like you're just racist. You don't like black people. It's like, no, I don't like the character. That's it.
Correct.
Believe me, I haven't liked a lot of characters who are white men, and I'm just like, ugh, get away from me. But at the
It's been
same
hard for
time,
me to ever like the dude that played the Joker, that Joaquin Phoenix, after the Gladiator. I fucking hate him.
oh yeah, that's tough. That's tough. He
He's
was
just
really
such a piece of
hateable,
shit there, and I'm just like, yep. They said they ruined his career for a while because people just could not unsee that.
which is, which is like, do you think that's just an amazing character? Then do you think that's just an amazing character?
It's
You
great
hate him
writing
so
and
much.
great acting. Great writing
Yes,
and great acting. And
fair
so
enough.
it's very scary though when you have that, but then you put a black or brown person in there. Now things can get super sketchy, and with social media, like now people will come at you and they'll make
Yeah,
threats on your life. They'll say,
right.
sexual harassment things. Like it gets intense. So
Fair.
it's a different level of hate online. Online is so fucking terrible.
It's not
Um,
great. No.
it's not great. Like some people be coming at us on the podcast and like, Jesus,
Yeah.
you're just a terrible person.
Yeah.
So
Anonymity.
yes, I'm telling you, man, to help hide behind that. But this internal racist stuff, man, it's a thing. Uh,
Right.
like even people of color will hate on people of color.
Yes.
That's a big thing too. Like we'll tear it down. Like the Miss Marvel, a lot of Arab folks like really didn't like that because like there's just a lot of things that they did not. They just went against Islam and stuff like that, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not connecting it. Like you shouldn't be doing this. This is haram. This is bad."
Did they
Um,
really? I had no
oh yeah,
idea.
no, there
I
was
didn't hear
there was
anything about
definitely a lot of people that did not like Islam talked about or her representing it, um, or her
it.
being
Oh,
more
okay.
open, or the parents being more open and they should have been more conservative.
Oh,
Her and the
okay.
parents. So there was a backlash on that.
So she was just like that show was just getting it on all
She
fronts.
was getting it
Then
from white folks. She was getting it from Arab folk. She was getting it from the comic folks. It was intense.
wow.
Yep, yep.
I will
But
say Miss Marvel wasn't my cup of tea, but
true.
that's
But for a
crazy.
lot of little brown Arab girls,
Yeah,
and there's a
of course.
lot. Islam is the like number one religion now in the world. So a lot of little
Right.
brown girls, that show was probably everything.
Yeah.
especially because all the very toxic masculinity. And I have to be careful on how we speak with this when it comes to Islam. Some folks will make threats about it. They get pretty intense. But yeah, there's a lot of bad stuff in that area. And so I think it was a great show for a lot of women. Really enjoyed it. That representation was good, even if the acting was kind of bad. But it's a Disney Plus fucking TV show that they just pumped out. Yeah. They pumped out way too many of them.
True.
Let's backtrack it.
Yes.
I think the best way to deal with some of these, therapizing these things, is to making sure you do your best to regulate yourself when you go home, to seek support. So let's say like I'm running a Latinx support group this semester. I've run BIPOC support groups, so that's for anyone of color or indigenous backgrounds, Black, brown, or indigenous. But now I'm going to do a Latinx one so I can get higher enrollment in that. It's a support, because being in a all-white school, a PWI, predominantly white institution at Purdue, it's tough. To be in higher education where it's mostly white bodies, it's tough. And so these support groups or therapy groups, you're not just venting about white folk. You're talking about everything, but also the context of race and being with your people that look like you is very healthy. That's also why I run autism groups, because it's an identity group and we can be with each other. Doesn't matter what race or gender, sexuality, because that was just the focused on autism. We can just feel comfortable being around our people. So these support groups are wonderful things. Speaking to your friends are awesome things. Seeking mentorship from other people of color are good. So if you're struggling, like at your workplace, see if there's any groups for folks of color. See if there's anything for like women of color. See if there's anything for like gay folk, LGBTQ folk. If you're going to graduate school, like see if there's lawyers of color or women in engineering, whatever it is. Try and find those identity groups to where all of you are working together towards the same goal that hold the same identity. It's a very powerful thing to have that community, so where you don't feel isolated. The next thing is making sure that you don't pop off.
Yeah.
Don't, like Spence talked about, they trying to get you to act up and do something, and they got you, you little motherfucking thug. I was going to say some other slurs, but I didn't want to go there.
Yeah,
little thug, you little bad boy.
Yeah. Anytime I hear the word thug, I'm just like, oh Jesus! Like, what the?
Yeah.
It's turned in such a negative connotation. It's always been, but like it's really bad when like a person's just like that thug. You're like,
so you wanted to say the N-word, didn't you? Or you wanted to say something derogatory towards like Mexican folks or Hispanics and call them Mexican, didn't you? Yeah. You wanted to call them poor or murderers, drug dealers, like that. I know what you wanted to say.
Right.
You rarely hear white kids called thugs.
No.
Yeah.
I'd be surprised if you did. I'd be like, wow, that's new.
Yeah. Just doesn't feel right. I've never heard it. I've never heard a white kid called a thug.
No.
Even if they were like more urban, never heard it called thug. Yep. Interesting. So do your best to control your emotions, to calm yourself. I know a lot of us of color, different genders, identities, marginalized folks, we're doing this all the time. So this isn't a new thing. Do your best to intellectualize yourself and like get yourself some support afterwards. That way you can come correct later on. If you need to seek a new job, you need to seek a new job. If you need to set boundaries and limits, you need to do that. Because people are going to keep pushing and trying to use you. And so I'll work with a lot of my graduate students of color and women because they're getting taken advantage of. And so there's some things that are happening, and we need to set some boundaries and have some personal talks. Because people of color have power now. Right? You tell someone, well, you being racist, that'll trigger someone real quick, and they're going to get real defensive, but they know that they could get in trouble. And so there's a little bit of power now.
Yeah.
Not a lot, but there's a little if you call it out. But then you have to be cautious because you could get fired, this and that. So that's why I said seek support, seek mentorship, guidance. do your best to go back home and to not let it destroy you. Because I know I've done that where I'm like, well, they just think I'm a fucking idiot thug and I'll never be anything. And I'm just like some hyper masculine predator. It can wear on you.
Right.
It can wear on you. So make sure that you don't get very negative. Make sure you're kind to yourself. Make sure you don't believe the lies that people tell you because they'll seep into your head and, it'll fuck you up. You get called you're an idiot enough, or you get called you're a thug, or you're an addict enough, or you get told you're a punk enough, or soft, or a woman enough, or, the B word enough, you'll start to believe these negative things. So do your best to challenge those negative thoughts when they come up and then try to seek support. That's the best I have for this. Whatever you do, if you're in a position where you're making some money, do not blow up. And whatever you do, do not touch anyone. Don't touch nobody. Don't push nobody. If someone stands in front of the door, you like, could I please leave?
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, why do you feel the need to block the door? What's going on? I asked the permission to go. Let me go. If this is in a relationship, don't push no one in no argument now, because now you're gonna get the police called on you. Now you're gonna get your kids taken, or right? It can lead into a lot of bad things. Don't touch anyone. Don't even think about touching anyone. You keep your hands to yourself. You put them behind your back. I've had to do this multiple times where I'm like, oh, I'm about to strangle you.
Mm.
Like Homer and Bart Simpson. But I have to prepare people for that for a lot. Don't let that book. I know you can kick their ass. Just because you can kick their ass doesn't mean you need to.
True.
Well, no, I ain't no punk now. So I'll beat this mother. I know you can beat his ass. I didn't question that. But let's use your mind. And like you said a minute ago with me, right? You said, hey, man, if you don't like the place, fuck it, I'll find another place.
Yeah.
All right. I'm done therapizing some of those things. Then we talked about race in a lot of different areas too.
Yeah.
You got any sauce to add to it?
Honestly, I think anybody who we've talked to today, just keep on having confidence in yourself. Honestly, no matter what color, what gender you are, if you're doing things and you're making moves that is gonna better you and the people in your life, just remember that. And doesn't matter if people of another race try to degrade you, bring you down. Just have that self-confidence. Doesn't have to be like overtly out loud. You can just keep it inside of your own head and just be like, you know what? I'm better than you. And so I'm just going to keep on moving on, doing my thing, because I know I'm better than you. And that's all to it, honestly. I think that gets lost in there. But at the same time, have a humbleness to yourself too. Mm-hmm. Remember to bring yourself back down, because you're not better than everybody. And
you're better than them in that you're not going to hurt someone and demean them.
That, and just overall, you aren't going to bring me down to a level that you think I am capable of.
Yeah.
I'm going to be above what you think I am.
Yep.
And I think that's a good confidence builder right there, personally.
In spite.
Yes.
Yep. In spite of what you think of me, I am going to rise above.
Yes.
And show you and prove you wrong.
Yes. And I'm going to elevate all these other people in my life that might be black, brown, whatever gender, it doesn't matter. As long as you build up the people around you, who gives a shit? They can all go fuck themselves.
Yep. That's always a fun conversation when white folk will be like, Nas, you one of the good ones. I'm like, you one of the racist ones.
Yeah. You ever seen that? You ever seen that clip yet of Zach and Miri? Where he's like, can I have a coffee? Black? Don't you see we're having a conversation? White?
I have seen that. Yeah, I have seen that. Yeah. A lot of good points in this. A lot of more. There's a million things that we could talk about when it comes to race in this clip and goading and right. I apologize to anyone that's going to be like insensitive to the N-word in there. But still, it's a good scene that we thought about. Me coming from an all-black school and stuff like that. You know, me having friends that have been called the M words, or me being called the M word as well, because they use that for Arabs as well. You know,
Right.
I was kicked out of a university for people calling my friends the M word, and then I decided to act out in violence, and then I hurt some people. So that's why I said, don't touch anybody, don't go down the path that I went down, because you don't need to get expelled and kicked out of college, and then I was depressed and suicidal and shit, and don't go down that
Yeah.
route. You know, don't become the
Unfortunately, a
monster
lot
that
of
they
people
want
have
you.
that problem.
I know. Don't go down that route to become the monster that they think you are. Don't do it. Don't give them the validation.
Hmm.
You know, maybe did it feel good, you know, doing some of the things they did that day? You know, yeah, but then I felt like a piece of shit too. So
You know, it's
then I felt
amazing.
stupid.
I read Kevin Garnett's um,
Well,
biography, and he actually talked about an incident just like that, where white kids were, talking mess about one of his friends who was black, and then he went down and did something about it. But then he got kicked out of school and then had to move to Chicago because he was in South Carolina, and they called it a hate crime. I think it was South Carolina or North. It might have been North Carolina.
yeah,
But either way, it was South, and he got into big trouble, and they said that he did a hate crime because he was protecting one of his friends. Same thing with Allen Iverson, I believe. I think Allen Iverson had one of the same things at like a bowling alley or something. And he got kicked out of school. Randy Moss. There's just so many people, and there's a lot of people that aren't notable, but um, honestly, it's you have to keep your cool, and that's a hard thing to do.
it's a
It's
hard
a
thing
really
to
hard
do,
thing to
to
do.
bite your
It's a
tongue, to
hard thing
swallow
to
your
do.
pride, to allow someone to say something to you.
Yes,
Uh, oh, I was
especially
watching,
if it's
right,
been bubbling up. Yeah.
bubbling up. I was watching Chuck and Larry, right, and then you know they go outside the club for Halloween party, and then they, you know,
Yep.
because it's a gay party, they said some stuff at that
Right.
rally, and he said, "What'd you say?" He ain't even gay, and
Hmm.
he socked the dude in the mouth. He would have been
Yeah.
arrested and sued, and you can't do
Yep.
that. You can't knock anyone out, but you know
No.
we want to. But be careful, be cautious. For the folks that'll listen to this, don't fall into that. Don't
Yeah.
let that rage and anger take control of you. I want you to be better than what I was. The folks that'll listen to this, be better than what I was.
Hmm.
Most of you are going to be more smart than me and more collected than me. Most of you aren't going to be as large as me, probably. And so, with that masculinity, I felt like I could take advantage of people and protect
Hmm.
my friends. I normally don't get too mad when people say things about me, but then they tried to hurt my friends. Uh, so that's why I posted a reel a couple weeks ago. So in the beginning of January, it was the scene where the dude's like this Aztec demon in Suicide Squad,
Right.
and he's like, "Bring it! I'll show you who I am," because he's protecting his friends. And I posted that reel because I've been in that
Mm.
position. When people come at your friends, you're like, "All right, I'm going to kill you now."
Mm.
Yes.
Well, you just messed up, didn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. You done called the wrong person the wrong thing.
All right. So that's all, everybody. Thanks for watching. Like we said before, hit that like button and follow button on all of our socials. Keep on sharing. We want that. We want you to share. This has been the Different Spectrums podcast. That's Nazir. I'm Spencer. Goodbye.
Peace. Deuce. Boo boo. I'm too fat to go
I'm
away.
back.
Yeah.
I'm back. Oh, I'm gone.